really quick about Plan Lafayette Week. The one message that we've been saying at the very beginning of every single session that we've done is that this week is all about implementation and setting the tone that we are constantly looking at our plan that we adopted with your help last summer. We're using it as a guidebook to the initiatives that we take on and the things that we work on as a government, but we can't do it without you, without the organizations, the citizens, the residents, all of you participating, and so we need you to work with us to implement our plan, and then we need you to work with those you know who aren't here today to take it a step further. So we have a great, amazing panel today and two amazing sponsoring organizations. We have Prowl and AdFed, who took on and said, we want to get the word out about public art and placemaking. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate and Blake, who put on this great event to introduce the program. We were just saying it sounds like we're at a band or something.
Hear the song?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Kate Gray. I'm the president of the Public Relations Association of Louisiana, Acadiana chapter. Prowl is a statewide organization. There are chapters all over the state. And as a member of Prowl, you're also a member of SPRF, which is the Southern Public Relations Foundation. And so we have monthly or bi-monthly membership meetings where we have different speakers and talk about public relations and marketing with other industry professionals here in Lafayette. If you're interested in joining our group, it's kind of grassroots at the moment. It's great though. We have a lot of energy. You can join us on Prowl Acadiana on Facebook and also stateprowl.org Acadiana chapter. Blake, I'm going to let him talk a little bit about what he does, and then I'm going to come back and talk about what we're doing here today.
Thank you. I'm representing what we call AdFed, usually conversationally, but we are officially the American Advertising Federation Acadiana chapter. And we're a group of local professional advertising professionals. And so a big chunk of our membership are artists and creative types. So of course we're interested in public art. We're really excited to help bring this program to Lafayette. And I'll do the same pitch. You can find us at aafacadiana.com, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. Come join us, it's really fun.
So I heard a lot from some of our members of Prowl that this, didn't really fit in with public relations and marketing, and I want to make the case that this is something that we should all for sure care about. When you talk about a place, when you think about Lafayette, what do most people think about when they think about Lafayette? Anyone want to take a guess? What's a visual image that you would think about? Yeah, murals, I heard. So when you want to talk about public art and really branding a place and place marketing, that's such a powerful tool. I'm excited that you're going to hear from Casey Phillips from the VR Walls Project because he has been doing an amazing job doing that for Baton Rouge. I mean, it was not long ago when people would say, well, Baton Rouge, it's kind of like the pit stop between New Orleans and Lafayette. But he's really completely re-energizing that. But Casey's changing that, and he's doing a great job. And so I'm really excited that we're going to hear. I'm just teasing. But he's doing a great job, and I think that in Lafayette we have such a rich culture, and we're kind of New Orleans' little sister to a lot of people, but we know that that's not true. We know that our culture is rich and so ingrained into everything that we do here in Acadiana, and we just want our built environment to match that and match the spirit of the people here and the great times and how much we love where we live. And so that's what we're here to do today, is to try to make more of that happen. I'm going to do a quick plug really quick. Emily Newstrom's here. She and the Comprehensive Planning Office did an amazing thing for Lafayette that they unveiled last night. It's called the Neighborhood Toolkits. And it's on the Project Front Yard website, which if you're not done on the Project Front Yard, that's another great component to this. Because, we can do all this public art, but if we still have trash on the streets and if we still aren't taking care of our public space, and that's also putting a very bad branding sign for Lafayette. So these toolkits are available on the Project Front Yard website. It's 20 projects that neighborhoods can tackle, you can tackle, anyone can tackle, and she's laid out how to do it. And she's even shown you some best regional practice and best local practice so that you can actually go out into your community and see some people who have done this and done it right. and learn from them. She talks about funding. She talks about other organizations that you can partner up with. So it's a great tool, and I strongly recommend that everyone go and check it out, because then there's a public art component in it, and it's just great. So great job. So I'm going to introduce Cheryl really quick. She's our moderator. Cheryl Castile serves as the assistant to the St. Landry Parish President with a focus on community development projects. She has a varied background, including over 30 years in program development for arts and cultural organizations, hospitals, and community-based health and wellness programs. Cheryl also has written numerous successful grants, as well as developing and facilitating art, music, and community events and programs throughout the Acadiana region. And on a weekly basis, she is the producer and host of The Exchange, an interview format radio show with an arts and culture focus for KRBS. Cheryl?
I'm going to have them all take a seat first. So I do want to reiterate what Carly and Kate both said about when I look out in the audience here, I recognize a lot of people. And some of you I know very well, some of you I just recognize who you are. But I think it's wonderful that you're all coming out to see what you can do to make this even a greater place to live and be. And I do want to apologize just quickly. Of course, a couple days ago, whatever's happening with my voice and coughing, so excuse me if that occurs while we're doing this. I'm excited about who we have on the panel today. We are going to take a moment and introduce each person briefly. When you do, then talk about what your background is and what brings you here today. I also want you to talk about a moment in your life or an event or a happening when you knew that art was going to play an important part of your life, when you knew it was going to kind of continue to weave in and out of how you live. And that's an important thing for everybody out here to think about too. Because if you are people that are wanting to continue to make art a way of life here and how it's integrated in every facet that takes place in your community, it's not only important to understand the arts, but it's really important to understand what the arts means to you. And sometimes that's to really think about when did that first really resonate with you? What was it that captured you, that you knew art was going to be a passion, and however role that plays in your life. So I'm going to introduce first. First one here on the seat is Mr. Butch Roussel. Butch is the owner of Vivo Research, a consulting company that manages clinical trials for government and small biotech companies. And he also is the person who's been responsible for CivicSide.com, which is a community crowdfunding website, which has been responsible for some of the projects that are happening and have happened here in Lafayette. So welcome.
Can I go now?
There, go.
Okay. Yeah, well, first off, thanks everybody for coming out. My name is Butch Roussel. As Cheryl had mentioned, by trade, I am in drug development. I've been developing biotechnology protocols and pharmaceutical protocols for several years now. And I attended University of Louisiana and moved off, came back to Lafayette, and felt sort of disconnected to the community because I had traveled so much for work. So I decided to go through a program called Leadership Lafayette. And as I look through some of the faces in here, I see some of the previous class people. And it was at that time I really fell in love with Lafayette and sort of the potential that we have here. And I wanted to sort of give back to the community in some kind of way. So Civic Side was sort of the byproduct of that. And I remember sort of building this website. I'm by no means a developer at all, but that sort of process is just so enduring. And whenever we launched our first project, it was the Parklet downtown, and Kate Dario was sort of the quarterback for that project. And the project was a $1,500 project. It was small, but it was funded in about 4.5 hours. And I remember whenever that Parklet was built, and I was driving to work one day, and I saw 2 people drinking their coffee from Carpe Diem at the Parklet. And it was at that moment that I realized we created something more than just a Parklet. It was a moment, and it was an opportunity shared by 2 people. So I know that's not really where art comes in, but it was the proof that Lafayette could create something so quickly, and the people were ready for it. And I think sort of that same concept of sort of trans into art and a lot of what we're going to talk about today.
Very cool. Welcome. Next, we have Mr. Casey Phillips. Casey has been an entrepreneur in the arts entertainment industry. He's been very involved in promoting concerts all over the United States. We did lose him to Los Angeles for a period of time, but he returned back to home, to Baton Rouge, and he is the director of the public arts organization, the Walls Project, and you can see that Casey wears his work wherever he goes. So, welcome, Casey.
Thank you, Cheryl. I know Cheryl through our work with George Marks and our partnership with NUNU in Arnaville for the last 4 years, and I think it's important to just recognize the fact that what the Walls Project has done in Baton Rouge, and as we kind of expand to other cities, very based on the cultural placemaking principles that really George and that have really come out of Acadiana, being authentic to what you are, not trying to be something that you're not, and which in Baton Rouge, the opportunity was that it's not really anything, from a cultural, branding standpoint. So it was kind of a blank slate, but we learned a lot from, what has happened in NUNU and the way that the arts can reinvigorate economy, right? Because the arts are important for art's sake, but the reality is when we're in our, in the present day and time, museums are having to run Kickstarter campaigns to just bring art here, right? So I mean, funding is a very vital thing, and I'm going to let both of these women to the left of me talk a little bit more about that, but it's a very important part. So we thought from the Walls Project standpoint, creating public art that also generates small business development, awareness to issues that are in our community was very important besides just creating great art. So that's what we do with the Walls Project. To answer your question, which is a fun question, after I graduated from Loyola in New Orleans, I moved to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, to write a book and to snowboard. And it was oh my God, it was an amazing experience. And I wound up managing this venue that was a blues cover band music venue, and it was atrocious. I had to hear Mustang Sally repeated, moving from Louisiana and our culture and the level of our musicians in 1993, I just didn't know what I had, right? In the 90s of how amazing it is to just have that in your backyard, and moved to Colorado and watch people trying to play our music, just quite frankly, kind of doing it. And I finally just went to the owner of the club and I was like, I have no idea how to book live music, but it cannot possibly be worse than what you're doing. And just let me do it, and so I remember the moment that it happened. I had brought Rebirth Brass Band to Steamboat for the first time. They had never been to Colorado, and nobody had ever really heard of them. And all I did for a month and a half was go around, any concert promoters in the room, you always have your flyers, and I would talk to every single person. And back then, there wasn't even cell phones, so I was burning, just CDs and giving them to people. And the first time they came, we booked 400 people in this place. And I watched all these white hippies just go off and lose their minds. They had never seen this before. And me too. When I first went to New Orleans, I went to the Maple Leaf for the first time on a Tuesday, and I was just I grew up in Baton Rouge and went to a Catholic school. I didn't see this, so I get it, right? And I learned that Louisiana culture, it's a great experience, but it also is a financial one, right? This is a way to make a living. It's not something to run from or apologize for as an artist, as a professional creative, to make money. It's stop apologizing for it. Make money, make people around, and be ethical in music. And it led me all the way. I mean, I remember the first time I finally sold out a show at Grant Street Dance Hall. It was a band called Clutch. And that was a proud moment for me, right? So it's always been in my heart, and we'll talk about public art, I'm sure, plenty, but thanks for letting me ramble, and thanks for having me.
And next we have Ms. Jennifer Ritter-Guidry, and Jennifer serves as the Assistant Director for the Programming Special Projects Division for the Center for Louisiana Studies at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. She's responsible for so many packaged materials that come from the archives, but she's also responsible for so many programs that many of you have probably been to and have taken part in, for example, the Backyard Series. And I can speak from personal experience. She has been incredibly helpful on projects all over the Acadiana region and throughout the state. So, welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks, Cheryl. I know what you were going to say. No, I'm really pleased to be here today, and I was one of 10 coaches, well, excuse me, I shouldn't say 10. I was one of about 20 to 24 people selected to participate in the state's pilot program for creative placemaking around the state, and that was held in 2013. I was originally assigned to a community in Minden, and I hope I get the opportunity to talk about the successes there. And then I picked up the community consortium between St. Landry Parish and St. Martin Parish called the Corridor des Arts, which is out on Facebook. You can go and like it, their page, and keep up to date with all the stuff that they have going on along those routes of places to buy art, view art, and be a part of art. So my moment when I knew art, I'm a native of Lafayette, bless you. I'm a product of the public school system, and I participated in the Arts Academy. And so when I was in junior high at Alamo, my mom went to a conference with my art teacher, and I've never told anybody this story. And my art teacher told my mom that one day my hands would catch up with my brain. And that was when I knew that my relationship with art was going to be very different from the one I had imagined. I thought I was going to be an artist. I was just going to paint and create all day. And that took it really hard. But I'm glad she told my mom, and my mom chose to tell me that, because it made a big difference in how I viewed art and the value I placed on art. Just because somebody thought that I wasn't as good as the rest of the students in the class and found a really effective way to communicate that, it didn't change my passion for art or the fact that I wanted to still create art and be a part of it.
And finally, we have Miss Luann Greenwald. This is the first time I had a chance to meet Luann, and I'll tell you, reading her bio, the first thing that came to my mind was how cool for this area that she arrived here. But Luann has worked in the nonprofit arts and education sectors for more than 15 years, and this past July in 2014, she began her appointment as the director of the Paul and Lulu Hilliard University Art Museum at the University of Louisiana, Lafayette. So welcome.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Kate, for inviting me to be on the panel. My background is I actually trained as an artist. I grew up in a small town in Northeast Ohio and got my bachelor's in fine arts degree at Kent State University, and then I headed west. And I spent 20 years on the West Coast, got my master's in fine arts at USC, and then went to work in nonprofit organizations, primarily arts and culture institutions, and had a 7-year stint at the Mack Center for Art and Architecture, which was a great learning opportunity where I got to curate exhibitions and organize public programs and manage an international residency program for artists and architects. And then from there I segued into fundraising and higher education, and that eventually took me into working on a capital campaign for a new library, which then led me to Washington, D.C., where I spent 2 years working for the Seed Foundation, which creates public boarding schools for at-risk youth. And then, a year ago, when I saw the posting for the position at the Hilliard Museum, I thought, well, maybe it's time to pursue that lifelong dream of directing a museum, which is what brought me here this past summer. And my sort of aha moment with the arts was, having trained as an artist as a kid, I loved the art. I loved coloring and drawing and all of that. When I was a teenager, I finally got my driver's license, and my first solo venture in the car was to go to my local art museum in Akron, Ohio. And they were exhibiting the paintings of Julian Schnabel, and I'd never seen that work. And I remember walking through the galleries and seeing these huge wall-sized paintings and the artist had shattered ceramics and pasted them to the surface of the canvas and then painted on top. And you can just imagine what a vigorous activity that would be, and the density of that surface. And when you step back from the painting, an image came into view. And it blew me away, and I thought, wow, I had no idea that art could be like this, and I'd never seen anything like it. And so I came away that day knowing that I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a part of that. And I think those inspirational moments are so important to one's future. It's often the sort of spark that launches you into whatever your destiny is. So it's a strong belief I have in the power of art to be a social agent for change in individuals, institutions, and communities.
All right, well, welcome. We're going to take a look at probably about 3 different areas. We're going to look at what is public art, why should we have public art, and how do you go about doing that. If you do have questions, we are going to have a period towards the end where you can ask questions, so write them down if you don't forget, or text them in your phone. But we're going to start with, and maybe we'll start with you, Butch, but I want you guys to address what is public art, and also maybe some of the misconceptions of what public art is.
Yeah. What is public art? I'm the crowdfunding guy. I'm not the art buff here, but I'll take a stab at it. I guess the obvious thing that sort of separates public art from art is that it is public. It's sort of in the public domain. It's exposed to the outdoors. I think the advantage of public art is that it's accessible to all people. And I think the disadvantage is that it's accessible to all people. And so I think there's an interesting balance there. But one of the misconceptions about art is its dual purpose. Right now, we're working on a project with the civic side. I had a friend of mine come to me a couple weeks back, and he's a big proponent of running community, and he's here today, Mark LeBlanc. And he's taken this project on to install drinking water fountains around Lafayette. And so we sort of got a plan together. We met with LCG, met with some of the plumbing inspectors, and got this plan together. But it wasn't until we involved UL's architecture program, who is hopefully designing the fountains, that the project all of a sudden became attractive, and it had some zest to it. So I think that's sort of the message that I've learned, with civic side and with public art, is that it provides a dual purpose. We can take something that we use in the community every day and add an artistic component to it. And I think the same thing can apply to other things that we use, whether it be bus stops, bike racks, walkways, things like that.
And 2, I want to make mention of what Butch said. Remember what you talked about, because we'll get into more of that, but that partnering with local government and with the community. Because a lot of those projects are going to happen without that. Jennifer?
You want to go out of order?
Yeah, go out of order, mix it up.
Wild.
Yeah,
What a
crazy.
concept. Well, when I worked with the Corridor Days Art Group, one of the activities that we did was I handed out index cards and it was a room mostly of artists, and I asked them to define what art meant to them personally, and it was the results were so wide ranging, and that's the beauty of art, is that everybody has a very personal definition of art and what it means to them, and that's what you need to take out into the community, and I think, and that's what makes it public art successful, is whenever you're infusing it with your personal touch, so to speak, or your hands.
Is it okay if I go? Okay. So, it's real important when we're talking about whether it's anywhere in Louisiana, right? Even if you start thinking beyond Lafayette, Baton Rouge, Lake Charles, you just kind of think about it's a global movement. Public art right now, whether it resonates with you or not, is probably the most accessible form of art. It doesn't matter if it's a first world country or third world developing. I heard it said really amazingly this week by a South American poet. public art is the voice of the poor, right? And, you know, if you really look at like really strong statements and giving a voice to those that don't have a voice, that's one vehicle, right? And then, you know, referenced here, I mean, one of the greatest muralists literally in the world, and I can say this objectively, right, from outside of Lafayette, is Robert Dafford. I mean, you know, he's celebrated around the world, he's celebrated in Paducah, and he's celebrated here, right? And you look at, you know, you look at that level of artistry, he is producing Sistine Chapel caliber art. If Robert was actually given the budget that those artists were given in years to work on one building, pound for pound, he's as good as anybody, right? So you have public art, like you said, it is really, really depends on what the vehicle it's being used for. And we've done projects in Baton Rouge that literally cost $134 from start to finish, where we did the Inside Out project. You know, we got in there, we mixed wheat paste up, black and white photos, went around in the community that it was there. We were all having interactions, posted it up on a building with all volunteers, and bam, public art. And then you have a piece that we did with Robert in, you know, off the Mississippi River Bridge, the 10-story blues harmonica, right? And that was not for $134. So you really, it really can depend on what part of town it is, what part of the world is, but make no mistake about it, what we all create together in Lafayette and around the state is our voice that's adding to something that's global, and it's very important. And I can give all the businessmen and businesswomen and businessmen in the audience 100 reasons economically why it's important, and I can explain to the artists in the audience of why public art, even if you don't create it, why it is so good for your personal economy, because it raises the barometer and the awareness of what's going on around you. So, yeah.
So I agree with Butch's comment that public art is art in public space, most simply. And to tag on to Casey's comment about its accessibility, I think some of the best examples are art that involves that kind of community engagement, and that is necessarily part of the process of public art, typically. That there's consideration given to how does this piece exist in this particular public context and how does it relate to this community. I think when you look at the history of public art, you know, you see such a broad range of examples from, you know, your obelisks in a public square, equestrian statues. More recently, you have happenings from the 50s and 60s where artists were performing on the streets as a form of public art. You have minimalist sculptures that became kind of corporate branding symbols in front of headquarters. And then more recently, a lot of public art that's really motivated by the desire to do social good. And in fact, I think it's interesting that now social practice is oftentimes a curriculum in visual arts programs. So we've really kind of come through several cycles of how we perceive public art. And indeed, you know, you see all different kinds of examples in terms of its manifestation.
I'm so glad you mentioned performing arts, and especially in this area. It's such an integral part of our communities that we should really support performing arts as well as the visual.
You know, Luann, I wonder if you could go a little bit more about, going back to what Casey started talking about, why it's good for a community, you know, why it's good for the artists, why it's good, you know, for the business folks economically. But you mentioned about for social good. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think that, I think generally there's a greater consciousness in our society about giving back and being agents of social change. And I think you see it a lot in artistic practices today. You know, when I was living in DC, I attended a panel discussion that brought in like 5 artists from around the country who had all started social good practices. You know, just thinking in terms of, as an artist, what can I do to give back to my community? And the projects ranged anywhere from, you know, an artist going into a community where, you know, there was need for beautification and, you know, finding corporate sponsors to help fund beautification projects and working with the community in that area. There's the Watts House project in Los Angeles, which is actually affiliated with Rick Lowe's, what's it called? Project Row Houses in Houston, where similarly artists come and work with families. Oftentimes, people who live in that community had skills. They could actually help to, say, build a gate across their driveway that would offer some protection. So, artists are so entrepreneurial and great problem solvers, and I think those projects are, just really important. And I guess further, I would say, I think that public art, it's really a kind of becomes an icon in its community, and it's a symbol that that community cares about creativity and supports creativity. And to Casey's point, arts are an economic driver. You'll read studies that say people who attend art events tend to, go to a restaurant afterwards. They pay for parking. So there's all kinds of economic impact that comes out of cultural visitation. And I think that when you have symbols out in the environment indicating that you're a creative community, that you support creativity and support art, that reads as a strong symbol that this is a place people want to go. It's really, it's a destination community because of the arts.
So let me ask, you're trying to get a public art project going, and there are some people that you are trying to pull in to work with you. Might be a parish president that you're going to have to go talk to because you want to look at some of their departments working with you, some of their workforce. It might just be different business people in the community, and the feedback you get is, hey, you know what? We've got how many potholes in the roads? Our drainage is not working well over here. And let's talk about the schools. I mean, there's things we need to focus on, the education for the kids. Why do you want me to put my time and resources to this? I mean, how's that going to help with those things? How would you address that? Because that comes up quite a bit.
I won't go first next time. Is that good? It's not fair, I keep going first. No, I think it's the question, so why is it important? And how can we make it a priority? And, I think there's a lot of reasons why art's important. I think it provides a certain uniqueness to a city. It's attractive. But I think whenever I look at Acadiana and this region, I think we have an opportunity here because of our abundance of artists that live in the area. You mentioned Robert Dafford. I'm personally friends with Robert Dafford. And, when I talk to him and I hear about Robert Dafford, who lives not even a mile over in Freetown, he's spending 200 plus days on the road every year to earn a living. But he chooses to live in Acadiana to seek inspiration. So I think it's important because we have the talent here. There's an old saying, my dad was a football buff. He would say, coach the talent, not the philosophy. And I think that's what we have to do here in Acadiana.
So I'd like you guys to address that question about how you get people to come on board when there's so many other issues that they feel are important to address in the community.
It's probably our approach, right, is to follow other people's blueprints. It's, your own agenda is yours. So if we started off super grassroots, right? Like there was no foundation funding. We still haven't we've only probably received $10,000 in funding from municipal agencies, right? It's all private sector stuff. And, so most of the stuff that we're working on is private building owners, people who are like looking to do something in a certain part of town and yada, yada, yada. Now, when you're looking at like dealing with folks, I won't point anybody out in the audience, right? But there are municipal leaders in here, right? They're answerable to everyone. You have to always remember that. You're looking at a situation through your lens. You have to remember, or you can splash water. You have to keep in mind of all the different people that they're having to talk to every single day, and to just go out on a limb and invest that money in public art for the sake of it, they may want to, and we think it's a great thing. But what you really need to do is kind of like look for all the alliances and the partnerships of all the different agendas that can be served by the public art. And again, it's not about your vision. You said it very well. It's not your art as just an artist. It is the public's art. And so as a vehicle and as a steward of the community, you work with the nonprofit that wants to do bike awareness, and you want to find, they want bike sidewalks, and you talk to the civic association that wants safer streets and slower speed limits, and you talk to the local developers that are in the area that want to start getting more street side, shops and put the parking in the back. You have to get all these different people to the table, and then you do something that drives the awareness, and you've got to create the public support to allow the municipal leaders to divert those funds towards that, because it's what the people want. So it's like you have to understand who you're speaking to, and you have to create that space and to be less abstract. And then I know that y'all did one as well. We did a better block in Baton Rouge. It was received with a lot of pushback from the folks in the burbs, right? It's like, why do you want to redo the government street? Why do you want to, why do you want to invest in the most historic part of your city? I know it's a crazy idea, but I said, so what we did was we took a bunch of pod containers and we converted them into pop-up shops. And we took an empty parking lot and we involved artists from this circle, artists from that circle, civic activists, municipal leaders, and we created we re-engineered the street down to 3 lanes, and guess what? That construction is starting now. It worked. It worked, and the public art element of it complemented what everybody else wanted to have happen. So that's where I think that if people need to spend money here, spend money there, that's great. This is what I want to accomplish, and I want to accomplish it together. And you have to create that space for them to say yes.
Jennifer, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Casey was saying about finding your partners. But, I also would suggest finding your partners within the government as well. I mean, in St. Landry Parish, for the projects there, we're very lucky because we have a direct conduit via you to the parish president. And the parish president himself is very interested in a holistic approach to addressing the concerns of his parish. In other communities, your Main Street director is usually a good person to start with, particularly in the smaller communities, because they have a vested interest in improving the community in multiple ways. But also just listen, when you go talk to your parish president, they're like, oh, that's that's number 29 on my list of, 30. And so, okay, so what are the top 28 concerns of yours? And then you go and you find those people and you make them make friends with them, and then you figure out how your mission, kind of dovetails with their mission, and come up with a project. And then it sounds a little subversive, as I say out loud, but you just you can't get any traction at the upper levels of government. You just go and you find those people. I tell my university students this all the time: make friends with the secretaries, because they're the ones that do everything, So you go to the government offices and you make friends with all the people there, and you get them excited about your project. Like I was in the St. Landry Parish Courthouse and trying to figure out a map. And when I explained to the lady who was helping me that this was to install floating docks on the Bayou Teche for non-motorized recreational purpose, she's like, oh my gosh, I can put my paddle boat on the Bayou Teche? And all of a sudden, I had greater interest in my project, and she was already very cooperative, but she was that much more cooperative, and she was really excited about my project, and she was behind it, and she's gonna go and tell somebody else about it now. And it may be her coworker, or it may be her neighbor. Hopefully it's both,
Yeah, so talk to whoever you can.
Don't shut up.
Yeah.
Even when they walk away.
The other thing that I would add to that, you mentioned identifying stakeholder groups who would have an interest in the project, and finding where you connect with them. And then I think it's building the message is essentially good marketing, and you may have multiple messages over a project based on what that person's connection is to it. But I think when you identify potential resources that might be interested in your project, and then message it appropriately and educate them why it's a win-win situation, then you have that much more likelihood of success.
Exactly, and I think you mentioned Main Street programs, downtown development, such as who's putting this on, but I also think that Ben here in the audience with Lafayette Convention and Visitors Commission, tourism has such a stake in what happens with public art, because that public art becomes a destination for those tourists. So people like Ben, boy, there's somebody you really want to partner up with, is in tourism. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Butch? Okay, all right. When you know, I want to go back to what we're talking about with working with government, but specifically within the town of Lafayette. Now, Casey, you're in Baton Rouge, but you've done a lot of projects in the area. The other three, you're here in Lafayette. When you look at what do you think are the helpful things specific to this town for people to be able to put projects into place? Are there some unique things that you think about Lafayette that you think has been helpful, or that maybe has created a little bit of a hindrance, that here's some ideas for people to work around that?
Cheryl, it sounds like you're trying to ask a hard question. I like that. No, I mean, I'll actually start it with this. I will defer to my panelists who are from Lafayette, because when you're coming into a community to work, that's what you do first, right?
Well, I just said, I think it's really exciting to see Lafayette getting beyond its own regionalism. I live on the south side of town. Lots of people don't like the south side of town, but you know what? I live on the south side of town, and I can walk to a snowball stand. I can walk to a grocery store. I can take a short bike ride to my local public library. My son's school is across the street, so is his baseball park. You know, I have a lot within walking distance on the south side of town. Everybody don't freak out. But it does exist, not just downtown. And I love downtown, nothing against downtown, but this exists all over Lafayette, where you have these opportunities to make your neighborhood and your community a little smaller and a little bit more accessible to you. The Better Block Bertrand, what a concept. I don't know how people feel about Bertrand, but most people just drive down it and try to get off of it as soon as possible. Or they go to Dino's, perhaps. You know? But you know, what a great idea to take a thoroughfare and get people to slow down and really appreciate what is on that street, and what you can, you know, make it a little bit more walkable and a little bit more livable and a little bit more attractive. So I think that we need to continue to look at areas within Lafayette that we can create that kind of I don't know what the good term for it is, but you know, just make it not like there's only one place where you can live and walk and do everything in Lafayette. There's lots of places. You know, St. Streets is one. But you know, it's all kind of on this end. Let's spread it out a little. I love the South Side.
Yeah.
Southside.
You're going to start a war?
Yeah.
You from the North Side?
Yeah.
Upper Lafayette?
St. Street's guy. So could you repeat the question one more time? I had a hard time following. I had so many things come in my head at once.
Maybe for you to address, Butch, is what. I'm going to put that down. I think for you to address, you know, what is unique to Lafayette that you have discovered that allows some of the projects you have worked on to happen,
Yeah.
you know, to exist, and maybe what were some of the things that you had to work through?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that what makes Civic Side successful is the people. And so, yeah, without the people, because crowdfunding, relies on the community to fund things. So that's one area, and that area has been proven time and time again through a lot of different crowdfunding engines. But there's another area, and that's the civic leaders. We have to have a buy-in from them, and we have to allow the people to connect with our civic leaders. So that's one thing that we've sort of identified as we've done 6 projects now, is that our mission was initially to become this crowdfunding engine that just sort of that focused on civic activities. But what we've seen is that we've made connections with people. And so we've taken someone who's had no civic involvement, and we've connected them with someone in the community who is a decision maker and could go about, facilitating a project. So that's been fun. We've also learned that Civic Side's been a vetting tool for a lot of different projects and for ideas in the community. Does that help?
So I'll speak. It feels like, I guess, I feel safe in, saying it on the record that I've done business, in some kind of way, shape, or form for over a decade in Lafayette. And I'm not just comparing it to Baton Rouge. We've already done that one shot. And by the way, in all truth, I am not a cheerleader for the city of Baton Rouge. I moved back not by choice, but for family reasons in 2011. And truly, can't believe I'm saying this on the microphone, the place is cool. Like, it got cool. Like, it did. And it's no comparison, man, it's not a comparison to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette. They're all unique, and that's the whole point, right? What's so unique about Lafayette, and I'm just gonna say the people for the sake of it, everyone here is an artist. Everyone is an artist of some kind here, and even the ones that don't fancy themselves as which, right? Like the dude who's gonna be mad because I'm pointing him out, Chad Orty, he's one of our founding members of the Walls. He's from Lafayette, and he's been probably one of the most strategic people in our project of opening doors and helping us figure out how to negotiate the real estate deals and the insurances and all these different kind of sides. But Chad wouldn't fancy himself as an artist, but he paints. And if you go watch him cook, it's like watching an artist, right? It's just second nature here. And so for me, right, like the thing that is most exciting about working in this market, if we are afforded to do so, is that I know that the majority of people who are sitting at the table have an artistic sensibility and a cultural barometer. I have not always had that luxury, and I'm very excited and thankful for that opportunity, right? So I think that's where the opportunity of working in Lafayette is that there might be a lot of different voices saying a lot of different things, but when it's all kind of aggregated together, it's gonna be beautiful because people are artists here.
So I'm the newbie in the group, but having been here 7 months, I'm also really struck at what a creative community Lafayette is. Artists of all sorts, visual artists, performing artists. I find it a really inspiring place that way. And I think there's also a really strong DIY, do-it-yourself spirit here that I really admire, and I think that lends itself to the application of public art. We've recently discovered this phenomenon called yarn bombing. Does anybody know what yarn bombing is?
Yeah.
And, oh, really? Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I saw online, so what yarn bombing is local knitters get together and they create some kind of knitted project that they install in public space as a kind of intervention. So there was one, I think it was in Hong Kong, where they knitted a sweater for a public bus. And this bus drove through the streets with this kind of like Afghan kind of pattern on it. But I think that's a phenomenal example of, people getting together with resources and just making something happen. And I think Lafayette has great potential that way.
All right. Part of Plan Lafayette, with their comprehensive plan, is looking at the gateways when you're entering into town. And I wonder if you could all speak to that in terms of what you have seen that has been developed thus far in terms of public art, maybe some areas that you think would be a really good partnership between public art and welcoming people into the town.
I think gateways are important. I still have friends. I've only lived here for 5 years, spent some time here in college, but I have friends who were born and raised in Lafayette, and they still don't know what or where Freetown is. It's unbelievable. It exists, I promise. It exists. And so, it sort of begs that question. I mean, when you're in a particular area in Lafayette, do you really know where you are? And I think a lot of cities out there struggle with that. So I think gateways are definitely important, and thank you for bringing it up. I think areas in Lafayette need to figure out how they want to brand themselves in terms of a gateway. But sort of like the water fountain project I mentioned, I think that artists could be key to sort of that design process.
The cool thing about the gateways, though, is that it speaks to another part of the big master plan in incorporating local history. Because what's happened is all of these neighborhoods like Freetown, Puerto Rico, that a lot of people, growing up, I knew about Freetown when I lived in it, and then I knew about Fightingville because my friends lived there, and I learned about all these other neighborhoods, and but just by virtue of being a resident of that area in my college years, And then here at the center, over the past couple of years, we've been working with a lot of these neighborhood coteries. And they've branded it, they've identified themselves with those old historic neighborhood names. And they've really delved back into how those neighborhoods were developed, who were those original members of the neighborhoods, and really tried to incorporate that and use it to empower themselves as a community organization to develop their areas and make them more attractive and safe and accessible.
And I do know with that project, with the Lafayette planning, what they did in those neighborhoods is they involved, I forgot what paint company it was, but they donated quite a bit of paint, and they did the street mural the painting projects, and that's what brought people out of the houses and to pay attention to what's going on here. People that may have not had any idea that they were trying to rebuild up some of these neighborhoods. It was everybody getting together with big gallons of paint and doing the painting project, which is something you're very familiar with, Casey, with that.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole thing, right? It can look like so many different things, just depending on what the vibe of the neighborhood is, if it's an historic part of town, if it's a new part of town. I mean, just since I've been here, right, I've gotten text messages from 2 totally different sets of, in Baton Rouge on people who want us to come to their part of town because they have a story to tell, because that's what public art is. It's the art of storytelling. I mean, AdFed, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the other acronym. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do in branding and advertising. We tell stories. We tell stories about either products and services or people to elicit an emotional connection. And that's what public art does. I mean, we've done it where we just do the bottom of the pillars of the interstate, right? Holding up the Mississippi River Bridge, which was a consistent area that was getting tagged by graffiti, and it was this adversarial kind of relationship with the city agency that had to keep going over there because all the local businesses were like, cover the vulgar, bad, graffiti up. And so what we did was we were hired by the mayor's office. I took one of my artists who used to be a graffiti artist, now they're a street artist, by the way, when they do it legally. And I said, and he gets paid now to do legally what he used to do illegally, and he has refined his craft. Here's the important thing. He has refined his craft. He is now creating art on such a large scale over the last 3 years because he does not run the risk of getting arrested for it. And I brought him into this project, and we went and found in the street scene all the people that do graffiti that were tagging everything. I contacted them and said, hey, I'll pay you $100 to come out and help us paint with us. And they came out and painted with us and with that artist. And when we did our volunteer day, we had 350 people show up on MLK Day as a day of service and remembrance. And they all came back out and volunteered. I mean, literally, you completely shift the paradigm, right? So and that is a gateway. It was a gateway between Baton Rouge between downtown and LSU. Those gateways are extraordinarily important. They were people's first impression or their last impression of your city sometimes. They are, and never underestimate the power of public art with the young kids that live in those neighborhoods. The kids know what's up, man. They know if nobody cares about their neighborhood and there's nothing but dilapidated buildings around and there's nothing that's fixed up. They know the score, right? So it's like when you get them out and they kind of come and they start doing the painting, they start investing in their community. And all of a sudden, all these sub-layers of impact start happening. And it turns into something way cooler than any of us ever entertained.
A metaphorical gateway right there. You've got to engage your community. You've got to engage the people that are standing around shaking their heads wondering what you're doing and why is it important. You've got to put a paintbrush in their hands and then show the taggers that their art is still legitimate. It just needs to be concentrated, refocused. Yes.
Okay, we're going to move to taking some questions from the audience. Before we do, somebody, if you're in here, that you have a pickup truck up front with a lot of construction materials in it,
Park in front of the bar.
you need to move it or they're going to tow it, if that's anybody in here. Okay, so let's take some time for who's got a question they would like to ask. And I'm going to ask you to project. Anybody?
I don't have a glad, because now I get to talk about Minden and what happened in Minden during the program in 2013. I worked with a community arts group based at a place called The Farm. A wealthy benefactor in town had donated her property after she died as an arts hub for the wrong side of the tracks in Minden. And it was run by a wonderful group of volunteers. They were providing they still are, providing the only arts and education programming for the entire parish, which is no small feat because it's not funded or supported by the school boards or the governments because there's no funding for it. They also have a farmer's market on Saturday mornings, and they host all sorts of arts activities for the community and for children. And during our process, they went out and they tried, we sat around the table and realized that we were seriously lacking in diversity. And that was the first thing that we needed to address with this group. And everybody sat down and made a list of 5 people that they knew in that neighborhood who were small business owners, who were Black, who they felt needed to be at the table and be a part of the conversation. And what we discovered was that the small business owners did not feel fully supported by the local Chamber of Commerce. We also discovered that the best way to reach the community, the African American community, was through the churches, and to engage the church leaders and bring them in, and then they were able to go out and talk to their congregation and really get them energized about it. They found out that even though they were in this community and they felt that they were doing all these wonderful things, that they really weren't touching many of their neighbors, that there was still this mental block about, art is for rich white people. Art is not for us. We don't get it. We understand they're here. That's nice. There's a fence around the property. We don't feel welcome there. And which was a total surprise to the farm group. They thought that they had really built up these solid relationships with their surrounding neighbors, and they hadn't. And that was really hard for them to come back to the table and sit down and really come to terms with and figure out how to improve that. And what they did was they just formed a coalition for that side of the there's an interstate that runs through, and so they just called it I can't remember now, the Interstate Link Number North Consortium. And they brought so many people to the table, really energized the community, and really got them involved. And now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Minden is facing a very serious environmental crisis with the explosives that were buried at Camp Minden. The federal government is going to do an open burn of those chemicals. And if we hadn't done the work that we did in 2013, that part of town that is going to be as affected as the rest of Minden would not be a part of the group that is openly advocating against another alternative, or advocating for another alternative to getting rid of all of these explosives in the area. We should all be worried about it because wind blows. It's not going to just sit over Minden. But so it's really important to make sure that you do have diversity, that you are reaching out to your community. I mean, looking around this room, we could go back to the coteries and invite those leaders in. I haven't worked with all of them, so I'm not sure, exactly how diverse that representation is as well. But it's very true. So we need to work on that.
I'm so sorry, I need to interrupt one more time. There is a white Cherokee with a UL 4172 license plate that they are getting ready to tow. So, okay, good. Thank you. Sorry about that. Anybody else want to add to what she was talking about? Okay,
I think that's a really interesting project and very meaningful, and it's so interesting in contrast to a project that I recently saw in Cleveland when I went home for the holidays outside of Public Square, their big theater. They engaged in a creative placemaking project where they commissioned a designer to build this huge chandelier that's cantilevered out over the street. And it's amazing how much traffic that has brought to the neighborhood. And they find, people are now parking several blocks away and walking to the theater because they want to get multiple views of this thing. And there are even signs on the sidewalk that tell you where to stand to get the best selfie in front of the chandelier. So the kind of marketing value that they've driven out of that is kind of amazing. But again, totally different, really kind of
but it's still getting people comfortable walking through, or that they drive through every day, but have, oh, that's interesting, but I'm not going to stop. Oh, look, I can go take a selfie. Oh, look, there's a hashtag. Finding creative ways to, reach all of your audiences in your community and levels of community. You can speak to children very easily through the school system if there's an arts and education program that's funded and successful in your area. We can work towards making it more funded and successful in this area. Sorry, that's my pitch for PACE. But and in Minden, we discovered the best way to reach the kids was again through the churches, as well as the schools. But the church communities, Minden were very solid and very insular, and so to really reach across, you had to go through the churches. And here in Lafayette, it's very different, because we do have strong church communities. We also have strong neighborhood groups, and then you've got all these other organizations like the 705 that are just ready and willing bases of volunteers and energy that can be directed into numerous projects.
Probably time for one, can we do one more? If anybody has a question? Go ahead, Ben.
Maybe Luann or Casey, being outside this area, any thoughts on some low-hanging fruit that you can take away maybe as an opportunity with respect to changing?
Well, when we were talking about gateways, I was recalling my first visit to Lafayette, and I remember flying into the airport and driving to the university, and I thought, where am I? It felt like I was, traveling through some kind of anonymous town. There were I had no sense of the character of this place. And then the next day, as I was walking around and I discovered downtown, I was like, oh, this is pretty cute. So, it's just, I think it reinforces that notion that, the gateway is important. It's your first impression of the city, and, you want to give some sense of the community the moment people arrive. I'm also just really encouraged that bike transit is such an important part of the plan, too, because I find my experience in Lafayette is primarily in my car. I leave my house, I get in my car, I go wherever I'm going. I'll bike ride on a Sunday morning when there's not very much traffic, but otherwise I'm afraid to, frankly. And I don't find that I have the opportunity to have much of a pedestrian experience other than downtown. So, thinking about those different modes of travel and how you move about the city and how we can improve that, I think is important. And I think when you think about places for public art, thinking of it in terms of creating a kind of destination or a gathering spot for people is an important component of that too. It's great to beautify our passageways, but it's also important to create places where people come to mingle and reflect and all that.
I don't know if, it's always important when you're having a discussion to make sure that you're talking about the same thing and everybody has the same definition, right? Like low-hanging fruit sometimes can be looked at as, hey, low financial, low barrier, kind of, projects that you can do and do like really, really fast, show some wins to get on the board, so to speak. I kind of think of it in a slightly different way. I think the opportunity is off the I-10, and then from University Avenue from start to finish. That's where, if you're talking about low-hanging fruit on where to focus, that is without question from an out. I don't even like to use the word outsider. It's the city of Louisiana. We're all together. I really think that there's a huge opportunity because in no kind of way, shape, or form does anybody have, could anybody be prepared when you get off at the I-10 in 49 and go through this massive chain restaurants and this big intersection, you in no way have any idea what you're about to get. Now, there is something cool about that, I'll admit. It's like the discovery of Lafayette, once you get there and you interact with it, and it's so, the compactness of it, you can have a pretty amazing experience and not have to drive across town like in Los Angeles or San Francisco or what have you. But at the end of the day, I think that first impression will make a lot of difference on a lot of different levels. And again, just in my humble opinion, it best as an outsider person.
Well, great. We're going to turn it over. Thank you very much, and appreciate everything that you guys talked about.
who were, I think, amazing, exceeded expectations. About 10 minutes in, I sent Kate a note, and I was like, this is my kind of panel. Like, they're actually talking to each other, which is great. I also, Casey said something about the Better Block Baton Rouge that I wanted to give Kevin Blanchard an opportunity, our Public Works Director, to talk about what our Better Block has done for Bertrand and for that neighborhood, because just to give people an idea that like there's momentum that can come from these projects. You know, whether Better Block Bertrand is public art or not is something we can debate, but you know, there are things that can happen in communities when you do projects like that.
Yeah, well, just very quickly, if anybody had a chance to come out, I guess it was in March, for the Better Block on Bertrand, from the horse farm to college, you know, where UL is. We do have about $1.7 million available now. We've started the engineering work. We're going out to the neighborhood and having some sort of public hearings. Sounds so formal, but you know, going out and getting some input. Because I think what I found interesting about this panel is, you know, you start off talking about public art, and you start talking about public spaces, and you start talking about placemaking, and all of those things like have to come together, right? And it's not just the creative work, but it's also the underlying infrastructure and the other underlying sort of way that our community is laid out. So that's basically it. But just know that you know that project is coming. We've got another streetscape project that's actually going to be right behind me here to continue the Jefferson Street streetscape all the way to Simcoe. That project should be bid out even faster than the Bertrand project, actually. So all that to say, through Plant Lafayette, you know, as these things blend together, we are taking steps. We're implementing what we're trying to kind of realize our community vision. So stay tuned, get involved, find one of these folks, find Carly, find Kate, because there's a lot of good work to do.
And I just wanted to put,
I want to say one thing. In an effort to meet some people in the community that I don't know, because there's a lot of familiar faces, but unfamiliar faces as well, I've got 5 Civic Side t-shirts back here. Please come by, introduce yourself. I'd love to talk to you.
fight for those shirts. Those are awesome shirts.
Okay, good. And I have more women's shirts and men's. And it was unplanned, promise.
I also wanted to thank Stuart Rowe and Catherine McCormick for coming today, because as part of Project Front Yard, we've realized that we need to get a handle on how we can facilitate public art and get out of the way to the extent possible, but be in the way where it makes sense for government to be in the way. So they came today to, you know, answer questions, offer technical help for those of you that are staying afterwards. But you know, the LCG is putting an emphasis on doing this, supporting it, and getting it right. And so thank them for their time in coming today to support this as well. So I'll hand it over to Kate. Thanks again for coming.
Well, I just wanted to kind of update you guys with some ongoing public art projects that you can be involved in, or even some of your little artists that you know. I teamed up with a arts teacher here, Shelley Bro. She teaches at the STEM Academy, to offer public art access for children in K through 12 grades to compete to paint benches downtown. Downtown office started that project last spring during the Student Arts Expo, which, if you aren't familiar with that event, it's a great event put on by the ACA and the Lafayette Parish School System. Paige is here, Gert is here, Brian's here, Gwen. They do an incredible job with the PACE program and also showcasing all of the arts, performing arts, visual arts, every kind of art that these kids are doing every May on Art Walk in May. So please come out for that. But back to the competition, that we're taking submissions for the concepts. Any K through 12 student, they can be homeschooled, they can be in private school or public school. They don't even have to live in Lafayette, but they can submit a concept for painting a bench. And you can get that concept, or the sheet to print out and come up, you know, submit your design at acadianaartworks.org. We're also, for the K through 12 students, giving them a U.S. savings bond in their name if they're picked, if their concept is picked. And then that program is actually growing in the fall to include a second round with college level, and then another round with K through 12 students. We have like 100 and something benches downtown that we can paint, so you know, we have a lot of opportunity for that. So this Create Your Benchmark project is the first phase, and so that's going on right now. We're taking submissions until February 27th, and then we'll do it again in the fall. Another thing I wanted to talk about is kind of coincides with that, but in case you don't know, a lot of the public art initiatives last year that downtown did It's part of an initiative called Creativity Everywhere, and that's something that we're even growing more this year. Some of the things we did last year were the parklet that fell into that, some of the Pat Gino artwork that went along on all of the street poles downtown. And then this year, we're actually excited to announce that we have $25,000 that we're offering in Creativity Everywhere grants that anyone can apply for. So if you're an artist and you want to do some public art downtown, you can apply for these grants. If you're an arts organization or another nonprofit or community group that wants to facilitate some public art, you can apply for these grants. Or if you just, maybe you have a wall, or maybe your storefront needs something that you want to do some public art on, you can also apply for the grants. They can be $250 to $5,000. And we're working out like deadlines, and the application process is very new.